message is transmitted.
Welcome to the Order of Chaos podcast. The Order of Chaos is a no-holds-barred discussion on the topics of metaphysics, spirituality, and the occult. And today my guest is Dirah of blackmagicdirah.com. Dirah is a practicing Luciferian witch, a left-hand path occultist, and a professional tarot reader and spellcaster. And just real quick, before we jump into the show, I want to take a moment to announce the launch of the Order of Chaos Discord server. And this is just a really cool little community where you can participate in chats with other spiritual people, witches, and readers just like yourself. We have a metaphysical study group, a paranormal experiences chat, and for patrons, we also have a shadow work support group and an advanced metaphysical study group. And we're always adding, new channels and keeping the conversation going. So if you'd like to join, I will leave the link in the episode description. Also, if you would like to book a private tarot reading with me, you can do so at www.theorderofchaosmagic.com. That's www.theorderofchaosmagic.com. And without further ado, let's get right into it. Dirah, it's so good to see you.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me on.
Yeah, my pleasure. I've been following your page for quite a while, and I've always been very intrigued by the Q&As that you do and how knowledgeable you are about the Goetic spirits.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me on. I've been really excited to do this for a long time. I've wanted to do something in the nature of a podcast for a while, and so I'm really excited to finally be doing this.
Okay, so to jump right into it, I want to ask, how did you get to where you are today? Because I remember in one of the videos I watched on your channel, you mentioned going to church as a kid. So how did you get from being a church-going kid to the Black Witch that you are today?
So I grew up around Christianity, going to church as a kid. My mum was a Christian, my stepmom was a Catholic, my dad was an atheist. I spent the majority of my childhood with my mum, so naturally growing up I sort of adopted her ideology. My mum suffered with quite severe addiction issues, and through her recovery from that, she found religion, and she found that to be very helpful for her. So I grew up around this ideology. I began to really fear the idea of the afterlife, of God, of the devil, of sin. And it made me very judgmental of myself, just of the way I thought. I kind of developed a bit of a perfection mindset. And I think deep down in my core, I knew that this wasn't me and this wasn't something that I belonged to. And I couldn't shake this feeling, but it kind of made me uncomfortable that I felt this way, because I thought it was wrong. I was like, no, this must be the truth. This is what I'm being told. But it made me just kind of cringe and want to like shrivel up. I almost felt like violated by this ideology, because it just felt so unnatural to me. I hated going to church. My mum would try and send me to Sunday school, and I just wasn't having it. I was like, no, I want to like stay here. I don't want to. It made me really like cringe when I did go to Sunday school. I just felt so like almost naked and exposed there. And I didn't like. I remember at one point we started going to this church which was a little bit more less traditional and sort of more like liberal in a way, and it was like more like people dancing and more like clappy and stuff. And I remember I went to this baptism one day, and there were people like being baptized, and it was really, really intense. And I just remember how uncomfortable I felt. So that was sort of my experience of church. And I think in my teens, I became very angry at this idea of what I'd been told growing up, because I started to suffer with various issues. I had quite a severe eating disorder in my teens. I started to abuse substances. And at this point, when I was about 16, my mum was kind of like, oh, I don't really know what to do with you at this point. So she sent me to go and spend some time with my dad. And by this point, my dad had actually moved to Asia and became a Buddhist. So while I was over there, I was exposed to this like Buddhist ideology. And I have to admit, I resonated with it more than what I had been sort of brought up around. So to this extent, I was kind of like, yeah, I could get on board with this, but something still wasn't quite right. I still felt very forced to believe this. I've always felt like when something is kind of placed in front of me and sort of tells me that this is how it is, it's felt really bizarre to me. But my experience in Asia definitely changed my perspective on spirituality. I had a lot of like paranormal experiences out there. I went to various temples, saw various monks. I had cleansings. I even had what you could describe as an exorcism performed on me out there, which was a really intense experience. But along with, I think the sort of family dynamic made it very problematic, because things weren't great with my dad at the time. It was quite a toxic thing going on. So that combined with this like Buddhism stuff kind of ruined it all for me. So I was kind of like, yeah, no, I'm gonna nip that one in the bud. But I did do my reading on Buddhism, and some of it resonated, but I couldn't quite. I knew it wasn't for me at the end of the day. But I was really glad actually that my dad had found something that worked for him, because he'd always been such an avid atheist. So it was cool to see that he had found something that worked really well for him, but it just wasn't for me. So I came back and I went through a period where things kind of got worse with my sort of substance abuse. I had really, really bad anxiety. I couldn't leave my house. I was having a lot of panic attacks. I was on sedatives and a lot of medications and stuff. And my life kind of just became this void almost. There was just nothing in my life really. I couldn't leave the house. I didn't really have any friends. I didn't have any hobbies. All I knew was fear. And all I knew was this feeling of, I don't want to be alive anymore, but I'm too scared to take my own life, essentially. But there was this nagging feeling within me at this point. Just, I felt like I was really being pushed towards something. And I couldn't explain what, and I was waking up at the exact time every day, and there were these just insane synchronicities in my life that I just couldn't deny. Like, I knew something like weird was going on. I constantly had this feeling that I was being watched. So I had this instinct that it was like spiritual, and I thought, oh, like maybe this is some sort of awakening. So I'd always been spiritual. I'd always been very connected to nature and to the idea of source and of a creative energy of the universe, not necessarily what I would refer to. I wouldn't call it God, but I knew that there was a creative force behind nature that I could connect with. So I'd always been spiritual. So I sort of picked up on, okay, there's some sort of thing that's going to happen. I feel it. And I dug out this tarot deck that I bought when I was like I'm like 15, and I remember I just started playing with it and stuff like that. And my mum found it. She was like, "Oh, why are you bringing this evil stuff into your life? You already have like all this shit going on. Like, why you're gonna make it worse?" But I knew what I was doing. I knew that this wasn't what I was told it was. my mum had always discouraged the idea of like Halloween and tarot reading, things like that it was evil. But low-key, I always loved that sort of thing. And I began, I thought, well, I'm really interested in stuff. Where do I start? So I think a very natural starting point for people is Wicca, just because it's easy. Everything's kind of laid out for you. It's very simplistic, and it kind of gives you the sort of like paganism basics kind of stuff. And you learn the kind of about the moon, and like all of the sort of like really basic parts of what witchcraft kind of is. So I connected with it to only so far. I didn't like things like the rule of three. I didn't like that it told me what to do. It's anything that has rules and regulations and I feel like doesn't allow me to have free will has never sat right with me. So it wasn't long before I left Wicca behind and just delved into sort of like traditional witchcraft. But I still felt like my path didn't have something specific that I could call it. I was much of a dabbler. I dabbled in sort of like little bits of voodoo and hoodoo, and I tried to work with the Loa. I started working with Sanhre, and I did connect really well with Sanhre, but with the Loa spirits, it was very much like, you're a lovely girl, but this path isn't for you. We're not for you. So I had to sort of respect that and just be like, yeah, you know what, fair enough. Like, I'm just trying to feel my way through this and work out where I'm going. So I had this kind of feeling that I didn't really have a clear direction of my path. And this wasn't until I actually got out of an abusive relationship, and this was when I found the left-hand path, because I had been through such an intense liberation, and for me that's what the left-hand path is about. It was my liberation. I had my power taken away from me in this relationship, and it's like the left-hand path kind of gave it back to me. And it was a real sort of like when you pull the tarot card or like the death card, it was really like my life just completely crumbled. Like my whole entire reality, what I knew of it, just shattered around me. And I remember I just thought, is this just a really fucking bad dream? Because this can't be real. Like the whole entire like what I know my life to be is just gone, and I'm just so lost now. So it really took me like being completely broken to find this path. But it rebuilt me, and it rebuilt this tower to be stronger. And I can literally feel in my body now that my sort of like my chakras, they feel stronger, and I have like it's like I can feel like I'm grounded and I'm pulled down to the earth, but I'm also up here and connected to source at the same time. So I've been completely rebuilt and transformed by this path. So yeah, at this point I completely rebranded my business and what I was doing. I was called Artemis 11. I wonder if I've got any people who have followed me from the very beginning watching this, if they remember when I was Artemis 11. And I completely rebranded to Black Witch Dirah. And Dirah wasn't a name that I chose. Dirah isn't my birth name. Dirah, I just finished reading the Book of Law by Aleister Crowley when the name Dirah came to me, and I feel like oh, you got it there. Yeah, I thought I saw it. I just finished reading the Book of Law, and I feel like when you read that literature by Crowley, it hits a different part of your brain. I feel like I almost don't read it consciously. It kind of goes somewhere else in my head. And it's like I don't know, I just had this I could feel something kind of like I was channeling something, and it kind of spelled out the word Dirah in my head. And I was like, okay, well, that sounds cool. I had no idea what it meant until about 2 years later when I actually Googled it. And it basically, the definition of it was manifesting the presence of God in the world. And when I read that, I was like, oh shit, like it actually means something. It's not just some shit I made up. Like that name was channeled. I was like, oh right, that's what it is, because you know, that's the nature of what I'm doing. Essentially, I'm manifesting the power of divinity. You know, I'm acting as that channel essentially. So yeah, that's it really. That's where I am today. So I think that sums up my journey.
That's amazing, and it's incredible to me how much we have in common along the path, because so much of that I can relate to. I really want to touch on two things you said. Number one, when you mentioned this experience being for you like the Tower card and the Death card,
Mm,
and I was just discussing this with my astrology teacher yesterday. It's so interesting because we were literally just talking about those two cards, and how for me as a reader, when a client when I'm giving a client a reading and I pull the Tower and the Death card, I think, oh my God, I'm so happy for you. And most people might be like, oh no, those are the two worst cards in the deck, but they're not. They are the two cards of self-transformation. The
mm,
Tower is the fall of established patterns, and for like, I gotta say, probably 99.9% of humanity, that would be a good thing.
mm,
To your patterns probably aren't that great. We're in the
mm,
middle of a mental health crisis all around the world. Things aren't going well. So the fall of established patterns could be a very good thing. And death is transformation. It's death and
mm,
rebirth. There is no death without rebirth.
mm.
So, and that's really interesting that you mentioned those two cards. And then, okay, now I want to rewind and I want to hear about this exorcism experience that you had in Asia.
Oh wow. I honestly, to this day, this is the weirdest experience I've ever had. So yeah, so I was in Asia. I was living with my dad for a little while, and it all started with I was woken up by 5 in the morning by my dad, and I was super jet lagged at the time, so I felt like super weird anyway. Um, and he said, "Can you come and sit in the lounge with me?" And I was like, "Yeah, yeah, sure. What's going on?" And he said, "Like, come with me, come sit down." And he had this like chanting music on in the background, and I was like, okay, this is super weird. And at this point I wasn't used to any kind of chanting, anything like that, so it just creeped me out. So I sat down and he was like, don't get scared, but I think there's a spirit in your room. And he said don't get scared, but like my stomach flipped. I was like, fuck, because it's like I knew he wasn't wrong. Like I felt it. So he said, "Come stand over here." And he stood me in front of this like big like Buddha statue that he had in his house. And he grabbed this like um, what I now know to be like a ritual dagger, and he stood behind me holding this ritual dagger and chanting. And as he said it, I um, sort of began to lose consciousness. Like I could feel like my eyes were like getting darker, and I kind of fell on the floor, and I managed to sort of like say, "Damn, I'm gonna faint." So he kind of put me back to bed and started flicking holy water all over the apartment, um, and that was that. And then later, he said, "Okay, we're gonna go see a monk." And so we went to this house, and I was actually tattooed by one of the monks as well. I had like some protection tattoo done on my back, and this monk gave me a tarot reading, um, and this is my first tarot reading I'd ever had, and it was all in by someone translated for me. And it was really obvious that my dad had told this guy to say certain things in my tarot, like because obviously I was like quite a badly behaved kid, so it was like, don't do this or you get in trouble with the police, because I had like a habit of like going to like illegal parties or like stealing things. So it was very much like don't do this, you could get in trouble with the police kind of thing. And it was all very like weird and manipulative. So I said, they were like, is there anything you want to ask? And I said, yeah, why am I not happy? Like, why am I just so unhappy? And they said, oh, you need an exorcism. And I was like, right, okay. So they said, go into the back room and get like completely undressed and wrap this like tapestry around you. And I was like, right, okay, fine. So I did, and I was just like wrapped in this material. And then we all like sat in a circle holding this like bit of string, which was meant to like channel the energy all like between us. And there was all this chanting and stuff. And then they were like, right, go out into the driveway. So I did, and just stood out there, and they were chanting, just pouring all of this like water over my head. Just in this like fucking driveway. And yeah, that was it. That was the exorcism, and as they called it. I didn't really feel any different afterwards. It made absolutely no difference to my life whatsoever, but it's definitely a somewhat amusing story now that it's done. At the time it felt extremely violating.
Yeah, I'll bet. That's I've never heard of anything like that before.
Yeah.
It's quite interesting. So another thing that you said that I wanted to touch on was reading the Book of the Law, and how it, and I think it's not just the Book of the Law. I think a lot of what we're doing with occultism is activating dormant parts of the brain,
Mm,
and activating our psychic powers through those dormant parts of the brain, right? And even that, like, if, as Crowley said in in the edition of the Goetia that I have the one with the interpreted the initiated interpretation into ceremonial magic as the intro, and where Crowley says that the demons of the Goetia are parts of the human brain. Some of it is so brilliant and so poetic and speaks to you in such a profound way that I agree with you. It's like channeled work, right? I mean, the Book of the Law, if you believe what Crowley's saying, that it is channeled work. It's the words of Awaz. Um, but really, in the Book of the Law, those first couple of pages are so mind blowing. Like, so they activate something in you that wasn't activated before, like a new way of seeing reality.
mm,
Yeah.
yeah. So,
It's definitely, it's very difficult for me to define my practice. It's not one thing. I read tarot. I practice numerology. I practice runic magic. And I'm very into comparative mythology, right? So I'm kind of all over the place, but several of Crowley's texts are really foundational to me, along with the Kabbalion and the Emerald Tablets of Thoth and some of that stuff. But like I said, I'm kind of all over the place. But I definitely agree with you in what you're saying, that when you activate these parts of yourself, like when you're reading this stuff or when you're getting into occultism, you start having these channeling experiences, like involuntary downloads of information, or you feel the presence of spirit in a profound way that you hadn't before. It's unreal. And I've had those same experiences. Oh, and another thing that's interesting and synchronistic, you were given the name Dirah,
mm,
and in the same way I was given the name the Order of Chaos. And it
mm,
wasn't until after having been given that name by Thoth that I was directed to the Emerald Tablets of Thoth, in which he says, there's a whole line about bringing forth order from chaos, and I'm like, there it is. That's
mm.
unreal.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
but when I when it had been given to me, I didn't think that was the meaning. I thought, okay, cool, the Order of Chaos, right? Like, what I do, I call chaos magic, so it makes sense. But then I found this whole other meaning through one of my spirit guides, and it's those little experiences that kind of knock you on your ass, and you realize that you're being spoken to by something outside of yourself.
Mm. yeah, it's incredible.
Can you describe to me, was there a specific moment for you when everything clicked together? Like, magic is real, this is real, you know, that flash awakening moment?
I think it was around the time where the name Dirah came to me. I feel like I'm using tarot a lot as to reference these points in my life, but I was very much the hermit card at this point where I'd kind of gone into this sort of journey of self-discovery. Um, this was before I rebranded, and I kind of took some time out and time away in just solitude, just completely to myself. And it was just a time of trying to figure things out, and just like you said, having these downloads. And I think when that around this time when that came to me, and I kind of really established myself in the left hand path, and I was really developing relationships, not just being able to contact entities, but actual working relationships with entities. um that's when I knew that, like, 100% that this is real and this is my truth.
Hmm. Yeah, I totally get that. And it was very similar for me when I had when my spirit guides introduced themselves to me. And this, what happened to me was I was I've told this story so many times on this show now. I apologize, everyone out there who's listening, but I was starting to study sacred geometry, and I pulled out this compass right here, and as I was drawing the flower of life pattern, it was like a flash of lightning into my brain, and they said hello. And ever since then they've been kind of guiding me through this process and this awakening, and directing me to specific material like the Book of the Law and the Emerald Tablets, um, and the Egyptian mysteries, and recently I've been very called to Norse paganism.
Mm,
um, and it's just been this whirlwind adventure of learning more about occultism than I'd ever known before. Because prior to that, for 15 years, I had been a rather, staunch atheistic Satanist,
mm,
just following the Satanic Bible and LaVey's work, which is a wonderful introduction to occultism, I think, but it's not a book I like fully resonate with anymore. I've just gone way beyond that. I'm not an atheist. I think that atheism is not good for your mental health. I really believe that.
mhm.
I'll kind of die on that hill because people want to argue with me. Everyone's beliefs are valid. Yeah, absolutely, but it doesn't mean that they're good for you. And believing that you don't matter and that nothing matters and that the universe is like devoid of meaning, I'm telling you, it's not good for you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No,
Your experience of reality has everything to do with your beliefs. So I really advocate picking beliefs that work for you, that feel
mm,
intuitively correct to you. And for me, that's always been very left hand path leaning, because I believe that the left hand path is the path of self empowerment.
mm, yeah, definitely.
So how did you first get started working with the spirits of the Goetia?
Um, so I had a mentor to kind of help me through this, get started on this path, because naturally, I mean, first of all, growing up with Christian ideology, I still had some of that stuff in the back of my head where I thought, is this dangerous? Is this evil? Am I gonna like ideas about my soul and things like that. So I felt like I needed a lot of guidance with this. So I did have some mentoring to get me started. And she is still a massive inspiration in my life today, and we still talk regularly. She still helps me out occasionally. So um yeah, so that really helped me get established, and she kind of introduced me to how to get started. And the first demon that I ever evoked was Astaroth, and it was actually an accident. So had the idea of having her sigil with me before I went to sleep, so maybe I could do some dream work. And so I thought, well, maybe I'll do like a little bit of meditation before I go to sleep. So I was holding this sigil, just sort of like uttering her name under my breath, and suddenly I just felt this like massive burst of energy into the room, like this kind of like demon just came like crashing in, or it felt like a crash at the time, because I'd never felt demonic energy before. And I was like, what the fuck, like, and it was like, like, hello, like, I was like, oh fuck, like, I've just done my first evocation by accident, just through meditation. And I can't even explain this feeling I got. It was like I just felt so high, and I kind of became addicted to that energy. So I kept trying to do it like every night because it just felt so cool. Um, and I that led to me developing a relationship with Astaroth, and for a long time she was who I felt comfortable with working with, and it kind of just expanded from there, really. I knew that I wanted to go about making a demonic pact for some healing. I knew I wanted lifelong spiritual help with that. So that's when the relationship with the demon Marvis started, and then it following that, then to Boone, then to Beleth, then to Asmodeus, then to Paimon, then and it's just gone from there, really. So it's kind of just gone from sort of like one demon to the next. But yeah, it all started with Astaroth. Astaroth's always been my guide, sort of like my patron spirit, my protector, my guide, always offering me her wisdom, and making sure she's not afraid to give me a kick up the arse if I need it as well, or tell me about myself, or tell me I'm doing the wrong thing or fucking up my life in one way or another. She's been she cares about me a lot, so she's always making sure I'm doing what's best for me.
That's fantastic. And then that's sort of the result you get from making a pact with one of your guides. I find is that they take it very seriously, and when you start to fall off the path, they let you know right away.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
I've had sort of similar energy in my life with Lilith. Very, very caring, and but will also kick you in the ass when she needs to.
Yeah, I had a very similar experience with Lilith recently. She won't let me hide from anything. She won't let me bury anything, and she will force me to speak my truth. At the moment, I have Belial on my ass quite a lot, and I would say that, like, I'm not scared of demons, but I'm scared of Belial. I'm not scared of Lucifer, and I'm not scared of the demons that you would think you'd be likely to be scared of, like Glacius Labolas, who is known to be a very murderous demon. But Belial, and I feel like with Belial, he knows everything about you the moment, the very second that you decide to make contact. And I feel so naked in front of him, like I am just transparent. And with all my Scorpio placements, I'm naturally very guarded and secretive, and I like to be very boundaried with how far I let people in. And Belial will just tear all that down, and I feel very, very vulnerable whenever I'm in his presence. But I know that he very much wants to meet. We have work to do together. So that's what I'm dealing with at the moment, when it comes to my relationships with demons.
Yeah, I definitely find that as you're doing your path working, if you're successful with it, if you're doing it right, then it gets scarier as you go along because you need to go
Mm,
to where you're afraid of. And that's where your guides are going to take you, to the things that
mm,
you're afraid of so that you can get past them. So I remember you said, as we were talking before we started recording, that you are a Scorpio sun and Scorpio ascendant, right?
hmm.
And what's your moon sign?
Sagittarius.
Sag. And you have more Scorpio placements as well, right?
Yes. My Mercury is in Scorpio. My Lilith is in Scorpio. I think that's all. No, there is one more. I think my Pluto might be in Scorpio, or my Pluto's either Scorpio or Sagittarius. Yeah, I think that's all for the Scorpio placements. Then I have my Mars in Virgo and my Venus in Libra. So my more softer side.
Yeah, it's so interesting to me that you have all these Scorpio placements because Scorpio is, Scorpio rules the eighth house, and it's the house of sex, death, and the occult. And
Mm,
I'm also a Scorpio ascendant, and I have my North Node in Gemini in the eighth house. So that eighth house energy is like it's the energy of the left hand path.
mm,
It really is. It's dark, it's the occult, it's the secretive, it's the hidden, it's and it presents itself in that dark sort of way. And I don't know, I just think it's so synchronistic and so interesting that you have so many Scorpio placements because it really suits you. Like you're a great example of a Scorpio.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay, so what can you tell me what's the strangest paranormal experience you've ever had?
The strangest paranormal experience. I actually went to a friend's house to do a seance with them because they were complaining that these are friends that I have that are at university. And they said that their uni accommodation, that they were saying this big old house was haunted. People were waking up with like bruises. There were hand marks on the walls where like there wouldn't like really high up on the wall. Um, there was always crashing about in the kitchen at night and stuff. And yeah, it was super weird. So they were like, oh, we're kind of, we're really uncomfortable with all of this shit going on. Can you come down and see if you can make anything of it? I said, yeah, we can do that. We can see what's around. So I brought my spirit board with me. I brought my pendulum. I took a trip down there, and we did a little session. And I managed to pick up on 3 different spirits in the house. 2 of them were dead, and the other one wasn't really like a human spirit. It felt like something else, just something a bit sort of parasitic. And what I picked up on was these 2 dead spirits that they had in this house were um, they had this such like really low vibrational negative energy that this parasitic spirit's kind of feeding off of the energy of that kind of gross lingering like astral sludge in a way that was just floating around this property. So yeah, we and it wasn't strange for me, but it was certainly strange for everyone else because doing the pendulum, they could literally see how still my hand was and that this pendulum was moving by itself. So they were like astounded by that. And I remember at one point when we had the last spirit come through in the session, um, there was like a door here and the hallway was on the other side of the door, and there was this big like crash on the other side of the door, and everyone was like looked, and I was like, it's okay, it's fine, like don't get freaked out, it's okay. But they're looking now, they're like deer in headlights, like everyone was so like freaked out by it. So yeah, all of that came through. Then I ended the session, I just kind of did like a cleanse of the house, and yeah, apparently everything was kind of all right after that. So yeah, that was a pretty cool experience.
It's interesting to me that you so you use a spirit board. Is that is it a regular part of your practice?
Um, Not necessarily, no. I don't use it so often now because most of the time I'm just communicating with demons, which I can do telepathically anyway. Like I don't really need to use like a middle um thing to communicate. It's more for the dead. I have a harder time communicating with the deceased than I do with demonic entities. So that's when I'll usually bring in something like a spirit board in that situation.
That's interesting. For me, it's the exact opposite.
Really? Wow.
Yeah, I have a very high success rate with my clients contacting loved ones that have passed on. That's something I specialize in, and it's always gone very
Wow.
well. I do it through the tarot, and as I'm shuffling, I just feel a tap on my shoulder. I can feel that
Mm,
they're there, and they're telling me when to stop shuffling, and it all goes very well. But I'll tell you what, I let my friend talk me into using a Ouija board one time, okay, and I was like halfway possessed within 30 seconds. I'd never ever touch one ever again.
no, yeah, no, that's understandable.
Yeah. You know, I think we all just resonate with different tools.
Mm,
I wish that I could feel like I could put my hands on one and have that not happen, but I don't. I feel super creeped out by that experience. It was literally, if you've heard of this spirit Zozo that a lot of
mhm,
people have had experiences with the spirit board. So I put my hand on the thing and it went like pulled it. The plancha just shot over to Zo immediately, and then I felt this thing enter me, and it didn't take me over. It was just a vibration that went right into me,
yeah,
and instantly I felt angry, just like it wanted me to scream at my friend that I was sitting there with
yeah.
and say horrible things. And so I booked it outside and shook myself off and did my my banishing ritual, which I have my own very lazy simplified version of the LBRP. It's the
Oh
chaos
my
magic
goodness.
version.
I'm
Huh?
so sorry to interrupt. I just remembered something that was completely at the back of my mind, and this is hands down my weirdest paranormal experience. I was extremely new to witchcraft in general when I tried this out. It was really stupid and irresponsible of me, but I feel like that's just part of learning. I feel like we've all done like shit that we shouldn't have done. And one thing I always say about the occult is that like people say to me, "Oh, do have things ever gone wrong?" And I say, "Yeah, like of course they have. Um, you know, you need to fuck up to learn." And this path isn't about being perfect. You learn from your mistakes. That's how you grow. But this experience, um, oh my goodness. So I had this spirit board, and I'd recently bought a haunted doll off of eBay. Um, and
Yeah.
supposedly the spirit that was in this doll was this sort of old fortune teller type spirit that used to read tarot during her days, and she could help you with your tarot reading. So I got this spirit board out, and I started talking to this spirit, and said its name was Clara or something. So yeah, I started asking it questions and stuff, and I was like, okay, well, this is going okay, this is fine. um Close this well, I tried to close the session, and obviously I didn't do it properly, and I stood up to just get on with my day, and I had this imagery of just this horrible looking face. So it was a trickster spirit. It wasn't what it said it was. And I just felt this extreme fear, like I felt it try and take over me, but I somehow just like fought it off, like I just sort of like resisted it. But I just sat there, and I was in the living room at the time, and my mum could obviously see the fear on my face. She was like, "Are you okay? Are you having a panic attack?" And I was just like, "Shut up, don't talk to me," because like I couldn't. I needed to focus on what was going on because I was just scared for my life. But yeah, I never fucked with any haunted objects after that. I didn't touch a spirit board for a very long time. So yeah, you talking about your experience just remind me, I completely forgot about that, but I just threw everything down the back of the garden. I didn't go near it ever again. It's still in that old house to this day, I think. Probably just down the
Ooh.
end of the garden somewhere. So apologies to anyone living there that might have come across it.
Yeah, haunted items. That's I wouldn't collect them, because I understand that the power they hold, but they're fascinating, and there's
Mm,
definitely a fascination for me. I think I'd like to check them out, but at the same time, I kind of know better. You know what I
yeah,
mean?
yeah,
And you do too now.
yeah, yeah, yeah. It was just done out of total just like naivety and just curiosity, really. And curiosity killed the cat. So I learnt my lesson.
Well, we all have to do that, right? Like, especially if you, like you're saying, if you take occultism seriously and you're doing the work, you're gonna make mistakes,
Mm,
and they're gonna kind of, you'll realize that you've made these
yeah.
mistakes. That's for sure. The way that I describe it is that the spirit world is just as full of life and different kinds of life as the ocean is. There's everything out there. There's spirits that want to help you and see you succeed, and there are things that want to tear you apart.
Mm,
And you don't want to fuck with some of the things that aren't there for you, right? That aren't there
yeah.
to help you. There's definitely malicious energy out there and tricksters, and that's what I felt like Zozo was. It wasn't so malicious that it wanted to do harm. It just wanted to scare the shit out of us, and it did. It was very successful
Yeah.
in that.
Mm.
And it went away pretty quickly. We chased it out of the house with Sage. And that's all it really took. But
Yeah.
from that point on, I was very careful about what I'm working with. Like when I meditate, I used to try to connect to kind of whatever was out there and wanted to talk. Now when I go into a trance state to talk to my spirit guides, I'm very specific about who I want to talk to, because
Mm.
I don't want just anything coming through.
Yeah, and it can happen more easily than people think. Um, I had I had an experience the other night. I was doing some hexing actually for a client, and it was a very intense job. And I was working with a demonic entity to do this work, and I was kind of I feel like if I really get into this work, when you invoke, I wouldn't say, I don't know whether to use the word possessed, but it definitely, you're channeling the energy from that demon. So I feel like part of it is in my body. So I'm not sure whether the work was just super, super intense and I felt weird afterwards, or whether I feel like I did kind of invite something I didn't really want, because as soon as I finished and closed the ritual, I still felt something following me around. And I went back upstairs into the house. And my boyfriend looked at me and he was like, "Are you okay?" And I was like, "Yeah, just don't touch me for about half an hour until I know like what's wrong with me." Um, and I'm pretty sure my eyes looked pretty weird, and he just knew that like something was off. And I was like, "Yeah, just don't come near me, don't hug me, don't kiss me, don't do anything, because I don't want anything to like rub off on you," essentially. So yeah, it took me about half an hour to just like get back to normal, cleanse the space, cleanse myself and everything. But yeah, it's sometimes you don't realize you've let something else in until it's too late, a lot of the time.
Yeah. So my understanding, the way that I think of these things, is that when you're working with any specific spirit of any kind, you have to match its frequency in order to
Mm,
work with it. And
mhm,
sometimes that can be a really intense, scary spirit, because these are powerful frequencies, powerful energies, right? I mean, if you match the vibration of a spirit that you're sending to do some dirty work, or to handle a situation, then you're gonna feel all the emotional intensity that it's gonna get. You're gonna get entangled with it.
mm,
It's gonna stick to you. um, and as a professional, you learn to manage your vibration and bring it back up to where you want to be. But when you perform a spell with all the emotional intensity that you can, because that's how you make a spell work, right? In my opinion, is you have to put that emotional investment into it. You have to feel those things, and it can be really difficult to pull yourself out of that again and get back to your neutral space.
Mm, yeah, yeah, totally.
Um, so do you work with spirits? Do you work exclusively with the spirits of the Goetia, or do you venture outside of the Solomonic entities?
No, not solely with I mean, mainly with the Goetia, yes, but obviously, like, we have Lilith, who isn't
Mhm.
in the Goetia. I have worked with Abaddon, who isn't of the Goetia. So yeah, it does venture out of the Goetia, but I feel like the Goetia is a very easy navigation system for finding an entity to help you with something, because it's put them into categories. It's kind of like, I kind of, whenever I'm working with an entity on behalf of a client, it's kind of like I'm trying to find the best solution to a problem, and I feel like the Goetia is a really good navigation system for that.
Yeah, I agree. I think, well, it's interesting because I agree with you, and I think that, like Crowley said, the spirits of the Goetia are portions of the human brain, and you're connecting to very specific psychic forces within yourself to do this
Mm,
work, and they've mapped it out very well. Um, but for me personally, anytime I try to work with or even start reading about or even really look at the Goetia, I become swamped by paranormal activity,
mm.
just swamped by it. And that doesn't
Yeah,
happen to me when I work with like the
yeah.
Egyptian spirits, for example.
Yeah, I experienced this as soon as I started working with demons. It's kind of like you mention their name and they're kind of there. Um, you're opening yourself to them solely by speaking of them, really. Reading the books, reading about them online, talking to people about them. Their eyes are kind of on you right from the get-go. So no, that doesn't surprise me at all. I definitely have similar. It's funny you should say that, actually, because just as you were speaking, I was like, the energy feels a bit active in this room this evening. I can sort of like, when I'm watching my screen, I can sort of like see things flying like behind me or like in the corner of my eye or something. So it's funny you bring that up now.
So along your spiritual journey and along this path, what are the lessons that have really come forward for you? What have been the most profound lessons you've learned along your spiritual journey?
Um, I would say the main thing for me is about it's about sacrifice and learning that it's necessary and adapting to the growth and change and transition that is involved in this path. And it's something that I fear the most about this path. And I think the lesson is coming to terms with it. Um, Coming to terms with the fact that I am going to have reoccurrences of the tower and the death card throughout my life, and uncomfortable change and pain. Um, and I think the lesson is adapting to that and being accepting of it. Um, I'd say, and I've had a lot of lessons about humility as well. The spirits I work with have been very, very humbling at times, very much calling me out on my shit and just forcing me to recognize parts of myself that aren't good for me, or ways that I disempower myself or create prisons for myself. Um, What else? I think, yeah, I can't really think of how to add more to that, really.
Well, what have your guides taught you about yourself that you didn't know prior to your spiritual awakening?
How when I let go, everything is actually okay. And I think there's been a lot of lessons with that because my need for control manifests in a lot of different ways. So I think I've been born into this world where I'm naturally very untrusting, and very self-reliant. And I think I'm constantly being taught that it's okay to let my guard down because I tend to have very high walls up around me.
Yeah, for sure. Would you say that, I know you talked about having a troubled past, and I do as well. For me personally, doing this work has alleviated 98% of my mental health issues. Would you say you've had a similar experience?
I definitely have. I mean, we all have our bad days. Um, and I feel like this has almost put barriers up to prevent me from falling back down slippery slopes, which I was perhaps vulnerable to in the past. Um, I feel like I can't. I feel like this path forces me to live in my truth. So there's things I can't run away from. I
Mm-hmm.
can't sort of bullshit myself. Um, I would say. I mean, the occult is. If it wasn't my job, it'd still be like the best like pastime ever, like it'd be the best the hobby or way of life ever. And that in itself has lifted my spirit. A lot of the time I was like, what would I be without this? It's like without it there's this void. So doing something every single day that fills me with joy and with gratitude and with love and literally raises my vibration, like that in itself is um, has benefited my mental health in an incredible amount.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. That's how I feel about it as well. Um, you know, for me, and this is especially with the left hand path, and I don't really know where to place myself along that spectrum because I kind of incorporate everything into my practice, but I definitely feel like the left hand path really emphasizes accountability and self
Mm,
responsibility,
yeah,
and it's your responsibility to transform yourself into something greater than you were previously. And when you can get on that path, but not only get on the path but realize that you have all this spiritual help behind you, that there's entities you can work with that are like right there and have your back, it becomes very doable and really exciting for that reason.
yeah, yeah, 100%.
So when you have clients coming to you for readings and for spell work, what's the most typical request of you?
um I'd say about 75%. Yeah, about 75% of the time it's love work. Either someone isn't happy with the nature of their relationship. I'd say it's one of two things. Um, Someone wants someone back in their life that has gone, has left for whatever reason. So bringing up back an ex or someone that, maybe the relationship wasn't official, but they want to bring this person back. And the other part is about commitment. Someone might be invested in someone who's not giving them the full commitment that they want. Maybe they're being unfaithful. They're not um, investing as much as this person is. I'd say those are the two most common circumstances that I deal with.
And how do you go about dealing with those?
Um, okay, so when it comes to returning someone, getting someone back in your life that was that has left for whatever reason. First of all, everyone's situation is uniquely different, so I go about it a different way for each person. It's never a one spell fixes all situation. A lot of people think, oh, you can just do a return to me spell and it will work, and it's like, no, like you don't know if this person is invested in another relationship. A lot of the time, I'd say the most frustrating blockage is any kind of the really stubborn emotional blockages when they're related to trauma. For whatever reason, this person has trauma bonds, and that's causing a massive blockage in returning them or getting the relationship where you want it to be, because this person is actually living out their own healing experience, and it can be a bit annoying to interrupt that. And I can sometimes it helps because it will help trigger that that healing experience, but at the end of the day, the person has to do certain things for themselves, and that is usually the hardest variable to control when there's healing involved, because that is it's like loads and loads of, like, it's like loads of strings tied up in a big massive knot, trying to undo it, or trying to like get chewing gum out of your hair or something. Like it's so like frustrating to undo. I'd say that's the most annoying blockage, but it's never a one spell fixes all. So I have to go about each situation very differently. Hence why there's a lot of readings and consults involved. The best way for me to work on the situation is on a 3-month basis. So I like to establish what I will do month by month. I'm not a quick spellcaster. I'm not someone who rushes my work. I have to, there's a lot of things I have to sort of think and plan and lay out to get the sort of optimum result that I want. So yeah, it's a lot of assessment. And when it comes to commitment, there can also be there's usually less blockages involved in this, because there's obviously with exes and relationships and stuff, there's a lot of baggage there, which gets in the way. Whereas with commitment, just escalating a relationship from where it is now, it's sort of from more point A to point B experience. So that tends to be easier. But it's a lot of the time there are blockages which you just cannot get past. For example, a massive age gap is something I see a lot. You cannot, if you have a 15-year age gap between person A and person B, they're going to be at completely different stages of their lives most of the time, and will most likely want different things. And a spell can't really change that permanently. So there are things that, and also children, if there are children involved in the dynamic, that's a pain in the ass, because I can't get rid of the fact that the bond that parents have, like naturally parents are going to want to stay together most of the time, all the time, but they're more likely to because they want what's best for the kids, or they're naturally more emotionally attached to each other because they share children. So there's blockages you can't get past some of the time, and it's hard explaining that. I don't like having to reveal that and say, look, this is something that we can't really get past. So yeah, that's kind of how I go about it, really.
Do you get approached for any types of work that you are uncomfortable doing?
There isn't a lot that I'm uncomfortable doing. If it's hex work, I can usually tell if it's well, I mean, I guess that's a matter of opinion if it's justified, but usually I can feel the person's anger towards this person, if this person is being petty or whether they genuinely feel wronged by this person. And a lot of the time, the heck feels a lot more authentic if I can feel that the person has done this person real wrong, because then I get angry. So there's not a lot that I'm uncomfortable with. I have been consulted before about miscarriage work, which is something I feel very uncomfortable doing, because as someone who sees children in their future, it's and knows that, you know, as a woman as well, there's no pain like that happening to you, um, and that really isn't something I'd want to inflict upon someone. And I think it's quite an unnecessary thing to do towards someone. So whenever I've been consulted about something like that, I've been like, no, no way.
Yeah, I would take the same stance. That would really bother me. And
Mm,
I don't do professional spell work. I only do tarot readings, and
mm,
I really try to guide my clients into some self transformation.
mm,
Rather than just because I'm not much of a spellcaster. I use runic magic for self transformation, and I'll teach someone else how to do the same thing to manifest what they want on their own. But I'm not going to try and manifest it for you. Similarly, I'm um, certified Reiki master. I think certifications in esotericism are kind of silly, but but I don't perform Reiki for others. I just do it for myself.
mm,
Um, it's just not, I don't. It's not that I'm not confident in my abilities to manifest for others. It's just that my passion is about teaching them to do it for themselves. Like I was
mm.
able to cure my own arthritis by Reikiing myself, and that's changed my life completely. Um, that's really fascinating. So, I luckily I don't have people coming to me with such requests, but if I did, I'd get pretty pissed off about it. I might tell that person off.
Yeah, an interesting one I had was someone was suicidal and wanted me to do a death spell for them. And as someone who has been suicidal and has known people to be suicidal and who have gone through with that, it really, really bothered me to receive that. And initially, I typed out quite an angry response, but then I thought, no, I'd just be like, look, you need professional help. This is not the right option for you. Please don't contact me again
Yeah,
about that.
yeah, yeah, man. And I can relate because I had been there too, and I think, like I said before, I'll die on this hill. People can fight me about it all day if they want to, but anytime that the only times in my life where I ever felt suicidal was when I did not have a system of spirituality to
Mm,
help me through the hard times. Because when you're an atheist, or when you just have been raised to believe or see things that way, then you inevitably get stuck with that question of like, well, why the fuck should I do this? Like, what's the
mm,
point? There is no point. This sucks. What am I doing here? And it's really easy right now to be, I mean, especially in the world right now at this exact moment, it is so easy to lose hope, and to not feel like you have that safety net. But one of the things that spirituality has done for me is taught me that I do have a purpose, that I'm here for a reason, and that there's meaning to everything. And B, and I don't mean to sound morbid about this, okay, so don't get me wrong, because I'm not suicidal, but I am in a lot of ways sort of excited about death. I have zero fear of it. I think it's going to be cool. I think it's going to be a trip. I think it's going to be sad. I have a 4-year-old little boy, who I don't want to leave ever. Right? I lost my dad when I was 12, and I would never wish that upon my child. But at the same time, like we all got to go at some point,
mm,
and to have existential dread, like live your whole life fearing death, that's a huge bummer because it's coming for you. It's like being afraid of something that's definitely going to happen.
mm. Yeah, yeah.
So for me, it's just so much healthier to have that safety net of spirituality, and to know that your soul is going to go on to other adventures outside of this body. And the even, now I'm not a person that can consciously astral project just like that, like some people can. But I've had enough, out of body experiences already to know that this is just a machine that you're using right now.
Yeah, yeah, no. I feel similarly about death, as in I'm not scared as to what's going to happen to me afterwards, because that the idea of that almost feels familiar to me anyway. Like I kind of just know like where I'm gonna go and what's gonna happen, and but like you said, it's kind of like the idea of it is sad in some ways, like what you will leave behind, and that aspect of it. I think the control thing, that factor comes in a lot for me, about controlling when it happens almost is my thing, just because I'm very much I want it to happen when I want it to happen, even though that I know that's never going to be the case. So yeah, I think my main reservation about death is just me controlling how it will happen, rather than what's going to happen, what's it going to feel like, and fearing it. So
Yeah. I think that Scorpios and Scorpio risings in particular are almost better equipped for dealing with death than any of the other signs, because it
yeah.
is the house of death. And Pisces too in the 12th house, but the 8th house really is the house of death. And Scorpios, even being the death card in the tarot, we're just geared towards understanding it and transmuting that fear about it, and helping others through that fear is really something I'm very passionate about, because it's, I mean, you really look at it like there's two things: you can be afraid or not. Those are your choices.
Mm,
you know and
yeah,
to,
yeah.
to have a belief system or not also are choices, right? I don't really get people who don't want to have beliefs, because to me it's improved my life so massively.
Mm. Yeah, no, I'm the same. I'm very when I hear people with atheistic beliefs, it confuses me. I'm kind of like, well, how does your life work? Like, what do you kind of do? Like, what do you kind of what system do you have in place which is enabling you to grow, but also holding you when you need that support system? So yeah, I feel atheistic um, ideology confuses me quite a lot.
Yeah, it because there's no because just like you were saying, there's not really a system there to, a sense of spirituality is like a framework that you build for yourself with which to move through life.
Mm,
It's a philosophy that you develop, and a system of beliefs that give you kind of a framework. And without that framework, it's just here and there and everywhere, and there's nothing really pushing you in any particular direction. I mean, I don't know. I was an atheist for a long time, but even as an atheist, as a Levian Satanist, which I was from 15 till about 28, I at least had an understanding of psychic force,
mm,
of there being an unseen world. You know, it's not really all that atheistic, to be honest. Like Levian Satanism definitely dabbles into the occult, but sort of explains it in a very material way. And I think that
yeah.
Crowley did that a lot too. He would sort of explain the non-material in a material way in order to make it accessible to people, or at least
Mm,
that's what I believe these guys are trying to do. But yeah, even then, I at least understood that your thoughts have a lot to do with what ends up happening in your in the real world, right? There's always been a link between your inner world and your outer world, and when you make that connection to spirit, you start to really realize how much of an influence your inner world has on the outer world.
yeah, yeah, totally. I find with Liverian Satanism, it's they're useful. The books, the Satanic Bible, the rituals, the scriptures. They're useful to read when. For me, they were useful for breaking out of any old ideas about the occult, about Christianity. That's what they were useful for me for. But in terms of like my own spiritual elevation, I didn't really go further beyond that. But I find the books useful, but that's about as far as they go for me. Just because I don't agree with the where it's saying about like how the supernatural doesn't exist, and because I know that not to be true. That's not my truth.
Yeah, it's the way I describe it is as a lower chakra philosophy. It's a
Yeah,
materialistic explanation of the occult, right? But it's funny because in being a lower chakra philosophy, it kind of denies the existence of the chakras.
yeah.
But it doesn't really work for me. But it's a it's a bridge. It was a bridge for me, and for me this is how the bridge functioned. It was well, my earliest experiences were actually with voodoo, and this is just when I was a kid. I had no idea what I was doing. I was just fucking around talking to spirits, and then I realized that they talk back, and I was like, "Oh shit!" Right? So from there, and I was just scared, and I had some negative experiences going to church. So when I found the Satanic Bible, and I stuck with that for many years, but for me, it went the Satanic Bible to the Kabbalion, and the Kabbalion opened up so many doors for me in terms of it's still not really all that spiritual, but you realize that everything is connected, right? And then from there, I kind of found my way into Buddhism and Zen Buddhism, and then I got into like some New Age stuff and started really making these connections, and then I'm still on this trip. I went through astrology, numerology, the Sumerian and Chaldean belief systems, and comparative mythology, and really just exploring all of this, and just and through having these experiences of channeling as well, it just dawned on me that yes, there is a spirit world. It's very real. You're surrounded by it all the time, and maybe you can't explain it to yourself in a way that makes perfect sense, but it's really hard to deny. It's like holding something and saying it's not there.
Yeah,
It's there. It's definitely there. Um,
sure.
yeah, and now, like I said, I've kind of found my way into Norse paganism, and that's really calling to me right now. And I'm learning to read and write in the Elder Futhark runes, and that's where my path is taking me now, and to work with Odin and Thor and Loki, and at least learn their myths. And I find it to be what I like about Norse paganism is there's no real division between good and evil. It just is. It's
Mm,
animism. The world is alive, and these forces are real, but they're not. It's not so dualistic as good and bad. You know,
yeah,
and
that's
I like that a lot.
nice.
Yeah. So, if somebody listening to the show wants to get in touch with you and book some of your services, how would they do that?
So the best way to get in touch with me is, well, first of all, you might want to check out my website so you can kind of just see what I'm about, have a look at the services I offer, and yeah, just everything that's on there really. If you go to the contact tab on the menu, you'll see an email address, which is the support email, and so you can just type in your inquiry, whatever you want to say or whatever you want to chat about. Yeah, just drop an email to that address, and I have an assistant who manages the inquiries, and she will give you guidance from there. Alternatively, you could book in a reading or consult with me via my website. That's pretty simple to do, pretty straightforward booking system. So yeah, just book in with me on there. My website is blackmagicdirah.com. So magic is spelled with a C and a K instead of just a C, and Dirah is spelled Dirah. I also have a Patreon where I basically post educational stuff like videos. I basically just take requests and just show you guys whatever you want to learn from me. So I have that platform available as well.
Awesome.